What's going on, everyone? Welcome into Hockey Hub here on NESN. I'm so excited for the episode that we have ahead for you all because we get to talk to Hall of Famer Jeremy Roenick. Not to mention is that we get to break down some things with USA and, of course, the highs and all of the emotions around becoming a Hall of Famer. So let's welcome in Jeremy Roenick to Hockey Hub here on NESN. Don't forget to follow NESN on all social media accounts and hit the like and subscribe button for NESN as well as Hockey Hub. Jeremy, it's an early morning for you, so we'll get started with the fact that last time we talked, you were waiting for the Hall of Fame conversation. Now you are officially a Hall of Famer. You've paved the way for American players in hockey. And then more importantly, you're hosting Snipes and Stripes. So that's where you can get all the content and pick Jeremy's brain on a consistent basis. But for starters, how are you? How have you been? It's been a year.
I'm great, Kasey. I appreciate it. And yeah, it's early, but I'm usually up at 5:30, so I was actually waiting for a couple hours for you, and it's great to hear you. Thank you for the congratulations on the Hall of Fame. It certainly was an amazing experience for myself and my family.
Yeah, I saw the emotion in your speech. I saw the emotions when your family talked about it. So I can only imagine probably how long it took to process and digest all of that. When did it become officially real for you?
I still haven't processed it. It's I've said to a lot of people, it was one thing to get announced and to get that call that you have been inducted into the Hall of Fame or chosen, but it was another thing to go through the whole experience and to be up on stage and to be able to really put all your emotions and your gratitude and your life's journey in front of everybody. And it was a great closure to that hockey aspect, that hockey side of me. And it's changed me internally. There's a lot of things that have changed me internally. And that was a big one that really kind of shaped my brain and my heart in a different way.
Absolutely. Now, was it an out-of-body experience when you did do your Hall of Fame speech? Like, when did you look back on it and think, what did I just say? Did I say everything? Because I feel like I get that way on a normal level. Hall of Fame talk is something completely different.
Yeah, I was very worried about that, actually. I've really done the Hall of Fame speech about 1 million times in my brain over the last 12 years. But when you really have that opportunity that it's really going to happen, it changes. And the fear is, can you get everything that you want out? I had a 21-year career, and there's so many things that I wanted to get out, but they only gave you 5 to 10 minutes. I took 13, but I was the last one, so I figured I would take advantage of the situation. But it was, I felt so much peace up on that stage, and I felt like I could have stayed up there for hours and hours and hours and just talked. It was like the world just slowed down for me for 13 minutes and allowed me to get exactly what I needed out. Maybe not to the extent or to the description that I needed to, but to the point to where I think people knew where my brain was and how grateful I was and how humbled I was to be up there.
Yeah, you mentioned closure. What was the biggest part of the closure that you felt when it came to your hockey career? And like you said, you're trying to combine everything from your career into one and check all the boxes. But what was the biggest, big breathtaking moment once you got that speech and started to process it?
Well, to be kind of comical about it, and I don't have to listen to fans anymore ask me, why aren't you in the Hall of Fame? And that happens on a daily basis all over the place, whether it was in an interview, on the street, especially when I go to Canada. It's like, and knowing that at that time of the year, having 50 or 60 texts saying good luck today, the fact that that's not going to happen anymore. And, my career was a crazy career. It was, you look at the stats, you look at, everything that goes into it, and it's even broader and deeper than that. And, to wrap that all up and put it into a big ball and end it with a Hall of Fame induction. I mean, that's one thing I never thought of growing up. I thought about being a professional hockey player, and I thought about winning Stanley Cups. I thought about winning gold medals, and the Hall of Fame was never on my mind until my career ended. And then it was, what's going on? and now, there's very few people that are in that Hall of Fame, and I'm proud to say and very honored that I am one of them. So and that that we went out with a nice, gracious kind of exit.
Yeah, your work officially has spoken not only for itself, but the impact that you have made. And one of my favorite things about you is the impact that you've made and the pave that you've done for American players. And right now we're in the middle of this Four Nations tournament. It's
Yeah.
speaks to a whole different level to be able to wear USA across your chest. And I caught on some interviews that you had an opportunity to talk about, like how that's just a completely different feeling. You can wear a uniform every day. You can wear certain things to represent the U.S., but when you suit up in that hockey gear, it just is something entirely different. What was your favorite moment from the many international tournaments that you had the opportunity to do representing USA?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's one thing to play for your city, play for a Stanley Cup, and play for a couple million people, but it's another thing to slip the red, white, and blue jersey over with the three letters. I mean, USA is it changes your mentality, it changes your perspective, and you have a total different, I think, attack mode kind of mentality. I had the pleasure of having Mike Ruzioni on my Snipes and Stripes podcast the other day, and I got goosebumps just listening to him talk about what it was like in 1980 when they actually opened up the door and paved the way for American hockey. The biggest upset in sports history when a bunch of college kids beat the Russians, which was a superpower. Um, that got me going. That got Chris Chelios and Tony Monti and Keith Tkachuk and Brian Leach and we can go on and on. Mike Modano going into wanting to be Olympians, professional athletes. In '96, winning the World Cup. In 2002, going to the final of the Olympics, the gold medal game. Unfortunately, coming up a bit short, but to win a silver medal at an Olympics is an amazing feeling and accomplishment. So. And the World Juniors, where I held the point record for like 25 or 26 years for World Juniors. There's a different level, and watching this Four Nations Cup and watching that game against Canada the other day really embodied what the thought process is and how when you pull that jersey over you, you totally get transformed into a different kind of player and a different kind of, I think, loyalty towards who you're playing for. And it was evident the other night on Saturday.
Yeah, the guys turned into complete warriors. And I feel like that's the best place to pick up because I needed to pick your brain. Heading into this Four Nations conversation, basically it was like Canada has the sexiest roster. I mean, that's what everybody thought. You've got these elite names on there, but we kind of started to forget what hockey has started to mean in America for US, especially because you got guys playing in Florida, you got development camps that are now starting to reach the southern regions of the USA and stuff. So initially heading into this, were you like, okay, USA's got that stacked roster, but USA can still do it, or were you not sure where the production was going to come in?
Well, first of all, I was curious of how I was going to really like a mini tournament inside the NHL season. I found coming into the first games, I was really excited. Then watching the games, I got more excited because I will tell you, the games that have happened here in the Four Nations with these players is so much more high intensity and physical and the old fashioned brand of hockey that I'm accustomed to, that I enjoy. And they're playing different in this four games because it's a shortened tournament, but they're playing harder, more physically grittier, angrier, desperate than they do for their NHL teams, which I love, and so it's making it even more exciting for me to be able to watch this. It's pretty awesome. It really is to watch these guys prepare for this. Obviously, hope nobody gets hurt because that's a tough situation to be in, to play this style of tournament while you're getting ready to try to race for a Stanley Cup. But yeah, it's the Canadians are sexy. There's no question about it. Their roster is great, but Americans over the last 20 years have gradually grown to be more of that power. You see us winning World Juniors more often. It's not just the Canadians. The Canadians are actually taking a step down. I think the national development program here for the U.S., they're building more, like you said, across the country. They're getting more kids to enjoy the game. They're giving them more options and allowing more kids to get great lessons and tutelage in the game. So we're going on the upswing, whereas I think Canada's kind of taking a step back and not putting as much emphasis into the kids or into the development as U.S. And now you're seeing the fruits of that of those decisions by watching a team that can play all sorts of games. Yeah, Canada is good. They got a lot of great players, a lot of offensive power. But U.S. has offensive power, goaltending, extreme defensive capabilities, and a team that can play together and kind of put their egos aside and really just play as one. And it doesn't matter who gets the goals or what the score is, it's as long as U.S. comes on top. And that's what you saw in the Canada-U.S. game the other night.
100%. And like sticking with the development for a second, look at how the draft, I mean, how many U.S. players are coming from those development camps and being at the top of the draft over the past, 2-3 years. So that's spoken highly. You basically said it. The U.S., in my opinion, had the most complete roster coming into this tournament. But something else that I loved, I talked with Adam about it here on Hockey Hub also, is that I liked the fact that USA seems to be the team that can overwhelm their opponent in every aspect. They can wear you down. They can be physical. They can be fast. That's how I figured that the Florida Panthers won the Stanley Cup previously. They could beat you with speed, but they can also wear you down with their physicality and their size. There's a guy that always comes to mind. You mentioned him in your speech for the Hall of Fame. He's got two guys repping the USA in a sweater. What do you make of the Tkachuk brothers or the Bash brothers or the superheroes that they are right now for hockey?
They are the poster child of the National Hockey League. They're the poster boys. There is no question that they embody what a hockey mentality is. Keith Tkachuk had that. He's one of my best friends in the world. He was one of my favorite teammates. I had the luxury to play 5 years with Keith Tkachuk, and I know how he thinks the game, how he expects the game to be played, and he has instilled that same mentality into both of his boys. And you see the way that they go on that ice every day and the way that they prepare, and it doesn't matter who they're playing. They are playing the same in-your-face, gritty, physical, and talent-laden game that their dad did. And you said with Florida changed when Matthew Tkachuk got traded there. They turned into a gritty team. They turned into a hard team to play against. They turned into a frustrating team to play against. They turned into a team that can play any style of game. And I'm glad that you said that about the U.S. is they can play a defensive game. They can play an offensive game. They can stymie you defensively and make you frustrated like they did Canada the other day. To hold Canada to 18, 20 shots is an absolute, just an impeccable style of game that they decided to play. And the Tkachuk brothers literally are those guys that not only talk the talk, but they go out and walk the walk. And to start that game with two fights within 6 seconds of each other, two brothers, I think not only inspired the guys on the bench, but it got the whole country up on their feet and rocking and rolling. And that's the Keith Tkachuk mentality. That's the Tkachuk way. They're awesome.
I love that. I love that you said that's the Tkachuk way. Something else that I'm hoping you can give me some insight on is you do see the physicality the Tkachuks bring to the ice. And I think sometimes you're looked at and perceived as just muscle. They're just out there to be the physical presence. But what do you think is something that the Tkachuks don't get enough credit for? Because hockey IQ, you basically mentioned it with their dad, his ability to kind of manage and think through the game. Where do you think the brothers aren't getting enough credit?
That's a great question, Kasey, really, because this is one thing that you don't understand and what makes them so special is their hockey IQ is off the radar. When I first saw Matthew, I was one of the first people to pick Matthew up after he was born, both Matthew and Brady. So I've known them since they were born. When I actually watched them play as adults, Matthew was in the development camp, and I watched him play. He was not a great skater. As you can see in the National Hockey League, he's not a fantastic skater. He's very lumbering, just like his dad. Not fast, but the places that Matthew Tkachuk brings himself to, the attention to detail, the way he sees the ice, the way he sees the play, he's one of the best anticipators in the National Hockey League. Not only does he know where the puck is going and he gets himself there, but he also knows where everybody is on the ice. So when that puck gets to him, he's moving it right away. And he makes some of the best, some of the most smartest passes that allow him to create some time for himself and his teammates to have time for himself. He is an unbelievable cerebral player that loves to go into the high traffic areas, go into those traffic zones, get beat up, and also give a beating. So that's why he scores a lot of goals, is because he puts himself in the mix. And Brady, who is kind of the same way, extremely brilliant and smart, is a better skater, has probably more talent with the puck, but they both see it and they both have that drive and that energy and that desire to play an all-around game and not just be there and just show up once in a while. They are there all the time. They're always thinking, they're always engaged, and that's why they're so good, and that's why they're so why they get the job done, is because it's never enough for them. And again, that was instilled to them from Keith, who expected that from everybody, not only himself but everybody, every single night. And it doesn't surprise me that his boys are representing their teams and playing the way that they are. And I just hope Matthew's okay after his lower body injury the other day, and hopefully he can get back into the game on Thursday, because I don't think he will play on Monday against Sweden. I think they'll keep him out and get some rest.
Yeah, I think that, and it's a smart decision. I mean, they're sitting like leaps ahead in points, and more importantly, you get to see some of these other guys that can kind of step up. I mean, I've loved Matt Boldy's play. I think he's a tremendous forechecker.
Awesome.
I think he's done well, and maybe a guy like him can shine a little bit. Gensel saw him a little bit in Tampa Bay before I relocated to Boston. So you got other guys where USA's roster can get into that sexier conversation. But
Well,
I don't know if anyone's harassed you. Good.
Yeah, it's funny you said that, because I mentioned Matt Boldy with some friends the other day, how impressed I was of watching him. You don't see him very much in Minnesota, but watching him, and there's people that are saying, how come you don't have this player here? How come you don't have this player here? How come you don't have this player here? Of other guys that you could have brought in, but you brought in a guy like Matt Boldy. But you see why, because Matt Boldy is an all-around, complete hockey player that can get it done in any aspect, any situation, and he's a very valuable player. I'm really happy that you mentioned Matt Boldy, because I've been very impressed with him too.
Absolutely. And I don't think he's getting enough credit to his name, because Minnesota has had to change a lot of things around. They've been impacted heavily with injuries. So I feel like he's always just kind of had to apply to what Minnesota needs at that moment. But I'm hoping a tournament like this can highlight just how much and how special Boldy is. And when they get their roster in a healthier place and figure out their lines more consistently, I think Boldy will have a better conversation around his name. But I've loved his play.
Yeah. Well, that just proves it's not just how talented that the roster looks. It's how it's built and what every single player brings to that roster. And the United States has built a very consistent and a very, I think, unique roster, where if you want to play really strong defensively, we'll lock it down. You want to play offensive, they got some game breakers that can do that. You have the goal, we have the goaltending. There's every aspect of that bill. It's not just who the best players are, because you know what they always say, hard work will beat talent 7 days a week when talent doesn't want to work. Right?
Exactly.
So these guys, you need lunch pail guys. Not to say that USA has lunch pail guys, but they definitely have guys that aren't as talented as a McDavid or a MacKinnon or Cale Makar, but they have the brains and they're willing to do everything as a team, not just individually. And that's not to say Canada is, but USA is doing it better.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the grit and doing all the small details right. That always is going to get you a couple leaps ahead. So hot seat for a second. If I put the GM hat on you and you had to pick your top line for the USA tournament, and you can choose from any decade, who are your top three guys that are going out?
Wow. Any decade US?
Any decade US.
So I'm putting Mike Modano, Brett Hull, and myself on the front line. I'm putting Chris Chelios and Brian Leach on the back, and I'm putting Mike Richter in net. That would be my starting lineup for USA.
Oh, see, you already had it top of frame. I love that. That was right there at the
Well,
tip
I
of your
would throw
tongue.
Tony Amonte in there. I would throw Tony Amonte in there for myself because he's like my soulmate of wingers. But I think Mike McDaniel is the best USA hockey player of all time. You have Brett Hull that just can shoot. There's only one better shooter, or maybe two of all time. And that's Ovechkin and Bossy, the three best shooters of all time. And of course, I got to put myself on there. So.
Yes, of course you do. Well, when I got to talk to you a year ago,
you got to put a little grit. Grit into that line.
Well, that's why I had to ask about it, because I remember asking you a year ago if there's any player that you can mention that might have assimilation to your game. Could you name one? And you're like, at the moment, no. Which, of course not. You have your own special set of skills, and that's why you've paved the way for American players. But is anybody maybe catching up to some of the style that you had in play?
I think those Tkachuk boys are very much of the same mentality, right?
Okay.
So maybe not as much of the goal scoring aspect, but when you talk about being able to score goals, being able to make great passes and great plays, being very physical and willing to fight, you take all those into consideration. If I was going to say anybody outside my Brady and Matthew, or I would like to say I played just like them, or they're playing just like myself and their dad. So.
Yep, cool. That's a great club for y'all to be in. Before I let you go, one thing that I'd be remiss not to ask you, especially being here in Boston, if you have a team and a roster with a lot of talent on it, but it's just not coming together, the postseason feels like it might be out of reach a little bit, or you're right at the cusp. What do you think is the biggest thing that needs to help this roster come together, where the talent and the chemistry can start helping them get consistently in the winning column?
Yeah, that's all about building that whole chemistry in that locker room, and whether coming down to a trade deadline right now, where there's a lot of teams that are wondering what they need, what they're missing, what they need to get rid of. That trade deadline is a very important, I think, aspect to NHL teams that can either bolster a team and give them confidence that the team is bringing in something to help them, or waking them up by getting rid of somebody and say, hey, listen, boys, we need to get a little bit better. We need to come together. It's building that culture in that locker room. And the only way you're going to build that culture in that locker room is to get the top guys to talk and to be in front of everybody and have conversations. I don't know really what goes on in an NHL locker room, whether there is a lot of talk, a lot of rah-rah or whatever. But, if it's not working too well, is getting right in front of everybody and literally going one by one right down the line and giving each other their own opinions of that player. The worst thing for a player in the locker room is to have another one of your teammates not like the way you're playing, or have a doubt about whether you're engaged. And if that honesty happens in the locker room, you will see, I think, guys will work harder and that bond will happen faster. But that's how I would get prepared. It would be more meetings and more honesty face to face, and really make people uncomfortable, because you don't want to be uncomfortable with your players in that locker room. Trust me, you want everybody to love each other, but you also want them to respect you and know that and let them know that you're there for them. So that's how I get ready for it.
You got to get everybody playing for one another. That's for sure. Jeremy, I can't thank you enough for taking the time. I can't thank you enough for the content that you're bringing everybody over at Snipes and Stripes. And more importantly, I can't look forward more to what you're going to say in your next speeches as you continue to process becoming a part of the Hall of Fame. So enjoy it with your wife and your family.
I hope the next speech is about a USA gold medal here coming up on Thursday. That'd be great.
There you go. They know who to call. I'd be psyched about that. Thank you again so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Kasey. I appreciate it. See you later.
For the biggest trending news in the sports world, check out Boston Has Entered the Chat, hosted by George Belleci, Travis Thomas, and myself, Kasey Hudson, available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Now it's time for us to continue the hockey fun, but switch over to the PWHL side, which means we got to talk to Natalie Noury, host, reporter, PWHL. We got a lot of exciting things going on. We know the Boston Fleet just came out of a bit of a break. They're sitting at that number 4 ranking, quality points back behind them. But what have you seen so far just out of this season? How do we encompass the season as a whole right now?
Yeah, first of all, so great to be with you, Kasey. I think this is the first time we're getting to work together, so I'm very
I
excited for
know.
this opportunity. It's great to see you, and I just loved the Jeremy Roenick interview. That was very cool to watch. But yeah, the Fleet season has been interesting. I'd say that the headline as of late has just been how much Boston has gotten stuck in airports, dealt with delays. They just had a crazy stretch of travel coming out of the break, like you mentioned. The weather here has been so difficult for them. I guess they were flying from Newark to Toronto, but had to split up on separate planes just because their flight had gotten canceled altogether. So they've been spending a lot of time on the road, just kind of stuck in these tough situations. But overall, they're doing a really great job, just kind of dealing with just the addition of more games, just the crazy travel schedule. It's been awesome to kind of watch how they have just kind of entered this pro side of life and really embraced it like wholeheartedly, because the PWHL was something that we weren't sure how it was going to take off, but it certainly did take off. And Boston, going all the way to the Walter Cup finals and then coming in this year, I think this is the first full year that it's starting to feel like, this really has longevity. Things are going really well. And yeah, the Fleet are just, they're embracing what they have and still trying to find a little bit of a way to string a couple wins together. But I think the signs that we've seen lately just kind of show how strong of a team they are, and the right pieces that they have to be a successful team too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see that you're seeing some strong points to their game. And I feel like they're just trying to make it more of a consistent aspect of their game. But is there a player, kind of a hot seat moment, is there a player that stuck out to you the most in kind of helping bring that consistency to the ice? Because I know it's everybody, it's all hands on deck, but then sometimes hockey just has
Mhm.
that your best players have to be your best players. So anyone just sticking out to you to kind of help with that
Yeah, it is a bit of a hot seat moment. I'm trying to think. I really like Sophie Shirley's. Sophie Shirley has some really good speed and talent that she can kind of play throughout the lineup. I really liked Hannah Bilka coming in as a rookie. She just had some fire and speed in her game that could allow veterans like Hillary Knight to really feed off of her pretty well. So those two, had some good chemistry early on. Hannah Bilka is LTIR right now on the injury reserve. She got injured over the rivalry series in the break, so hopefully she will return to the ice soon. But I am going to say Jill Saulnier, because I've really enjoyed watching what she brings to the team. She's a veteran, but she also just brings a ton of experience, speed, physicality. And just seeing their game on Sunday, you could see how Jill Saulnier, I would say Alina Müller, like Sydney Bard on defense. I think this team is really trying to explore the new pieces they have, and you can even see how the rookies like Shea Maloney too have really kind of grown into their game and kind of settled into the pro feel of the league, and just done a really nice job with it. So I think just like top to the bottom of the lineup, it's been a lot of fun just to see kind of what Boston has and how they've been able to utilize it. It was cool to see the goaltender situation too on Sunday as Boston faced off with Minnesota. They had Emma Soderberg start. Aaron Frankel had the night off. And then about second period, Clara Peshlarova went in. And this was her first PWHL game. She ended up helping the team come back. They scored 4 unanswered goals, and she stopped every
season.
shot she saw. So it's been a lot of fun just to see the rookies kind of develop.
Yeah, and I feel like it's inspiring to see those comeback moments in a team that's trying to fully find their footing. But I had to
Yeah.
put you in the hot seat just because I always want to find that spotlight for an underdog or a conversation that's not taking place
Yeah.
as much. So I love the names that you mentioned. Let's go back to Jill Saulnier for just a minute because the trade comes in from the Sirens. You talked about her play immediately off the top. How's her adaptation kind of been, in your personal opinion, to like her getting here and getting situated?
Yeah, aside from her play on the ice, I feel like I can really see her just enjoying this experience. What's kind of cool about it is Jill Saulnier actually played with Courtney Kessel, and they were roommates together for a Hockey Canada event in the past. So they know each other pretty well just because of the sport and beyond, too. So I feel like Jill has really come in and just really embraced her role, not only as a veteran on the team, but someone who's strong, physical. She likes to call herself feisty. And it's really, really fun to watch her game because, she came in, unfortunately, the team lost Taylor Gerard. She went over to New York, but Jill has just really found her way and has been able to kind of been plugged throughout the lineup and has just done well with whoever she's played with. She actually, both her and trying to think, she assisted the goal right away on Susanna Tapani, and Susanna Tapani assisted her goal as well. So you can just see how there's chemistry developing. When she did score her first goal with Boston, there was an extended hug behind the net. The bench was fired up. Courtney Kessel was excited. It's just been really cool. I think the experience that Jill is kind of seizing in Boston is visible through her interviews, her smile. You can just tell it's a really good experience, and the team loves having her part of it.
Oh, I love that. Well, you perfectly set me up to ask about Tapani because she has been tremendous in my personal opinion. I feel like she's such a quality two-way player. She's one of those people that kind of helps get that surge, that spark going when they might have that lull coming out of the first going into the second. So what have you seen and liked about her game throughout this season?
Yeah, no, I think she, in a way, from what I see, I just feel like she brings, not necessarily a calming presence, but I feel like whenever she's on the ice, she's just really reliable. And this team really likes playing with her. As I mentioned, her and Jill Saulnier played together, and you could just see the click between them. So Susanna, she's been really great this year. I think she's scoring more than she was last year. I think she's got 7 goals, 2 assists this year versus 4 goals, 9 assists last year. So she's starting to, see some more personal success. And that might be, because of the players around her as well. But, she just has a ton of patience with the puck. She really lets plays develop and, helps develop them herself, of course. But, she scored a beautiful backhand goal. I think it was the goal that Saulnier assisted her on. And she just stood there, received the puck, and then just picked it up and put it right in the net. And it was just like, to see a player like that, it's like, that's what defines a pro, just being able to take a moment like that and just execute it absolutely beautifully. So I think, she's really been a player that this team can count on. She's a very, classy, polite woman as well. So it's always nice to do work with her. But yeah, no, the team can rely on her in kind of any situation. And she's been great.
Yeah, I think her composure just kind of radiates off of her. Maybe it's contagious in certain moments when things start getting pretty crazy. Because, I know that I'm not always the most composed person, but I can be calm, or I feel like I'm calm internally and it's not radiating outside. So that's huge for the game.
That's how I feel.
Right, exactly. We always have to process that one an extra level. You were a part of a spectacular moment a couple weeks ago. Northeastern gets the championship. There was so many great conversations around the game, the tournament. But what I found interesting, and tell me if I'm getting ahead of myself here, Alain Müller was a part of that night. She got to go watch her former team as an alumni. And ever since then, I feel like her game is just kind of tweaked up, like this spark, this energy, this excitement. It's almost like she pulled off of her university and just implemented it to her game. She scored in the game after that tournament closed out. And I feel like she's been super clutch since then, picked up an empty header the other night. So what have you seen out of her?
No, that's a really great observation because that was kind of a topic that, we were talking about with the Northeastern team, because not only did Alain Müller get going after that, but Gwyneth Phillips had her first career shutout as well in the PWHL. She plays for Ottawa Charge. So it was kind of funny. It was like the Beanpot happened, and then all these Northeastern kids just really picked up in the pros. So it was kind of... Yeah, I mean, you're right about that. It was just crazy timing. And, Alain Müller, she was kind of struggling early on this season. So I was really glad to see her kind of take that extra step. I was on the phone with her a couple weeks ago, and she said, she's played center, her entire college career. She played center a little bit in the pros, but she's been moved to the wing. And that has kind of been a bit of an adjustment for her just because she's such an offensive threat. So, she was talking to me in a bit of that goal drought. And she was just like, yeah, I had to kind of seek out some extra help. And she called people like Daryl Belfry and Louis Russo, and someone else she worked with was Ellen Hughes as well. Obviously, Jack, Luke, and Quinn's mom. She's a UNH alum. I have to give that shout out. But yeah, so Alina Müller, she was really recruiting the right resources and the right help. And they would watch film and see what she was doing and see what she could work on. And it was like, all of a sudden she comes back and it's like, okay, there's the Alina Müller we're used to. So it was really great to see her, just get that monkey off her back in a way. And, she's really progressed the past couple of games as well. She had 2 points on Sunday, empty net goal, and then a beautiful assist to Hillary Knight for the third goal of the game. But yeah, you can really see that just by getting over that hump, she does have a little more swagger in her game. So yeah, they've been working on her defensive side as well. So it's just been interesting to see how, even though you're a pro, there's still things that you work on and you tweak. And, she said it best. She said it was just great to see and great to hear that even the best players in the game go through things like this. But, a rough spell like that always seems to find a way to work itself out. And, I think she's found the confidence, the swagger, like I said. And yeah, I mean, she's definitely one of the key players for this team that I always love watching.
Oh yeah, she's exciting. And the accountability. I mean, I was reading an Essen article when she was discussing the fact that, not letting that slow start mentally wear her down. But that's why I was looking at it and I was like, everyone's going to find their moment to turn the season around for them. But what more magical of a moment can you ask for than like your team wins it? And that's why I was like, okay, she's just drawing off of like everything that took place for her school and now applying it into her game. Maybe it just helped her kind of like chill again. Calm it all down, take the pressure off, not get so caught up in the season and everything else. But what else have you seen out of this team as they, try to push closer to the end of the season here? And they had that small break, and sometimes coming out of these breaks, there's a lull. But I don't think Boston's dealing with a lull. I think Boston's doing a good job of kind of picking up from the good pieces and starting to stack on top of that. So what are you kind of expecting coming up here?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, it's just like the tough time of year with the travel and the winter and the snow. I think that's kind of taken a bit of a toll. Just, they're like, oh, we're traveling so much, things are getting delayed. So you think about performing to your best level when also trying to deal with the exhaustion and the bouncing around. It was right after Sunday's game at 1 p.m. The team had to fly out back to New York. So that it was just like, no time to hang out, you're on to the next. And you know what, they embrace the pro grind and it's what they love to do. They love doing it because this was their lifelong dream to do this. So they're all bought into the mileage, that's for sure. But I think just coming up, I think Boston has showed signs of that championship level team that we saw last year. And I feel like in a way, it took them a little while to kind of get going, but now you're seeing more depth. You're seeing more contributions. I don't know if that's because like rookies are starting to settle in and rookies are starting to put points up, or if there's just, chemistry throughout the lineup that's starting to develop, like we mentioned, Solmier and Tapani. But Courtney Kessel, she doesn't shy away from shaking the lineup up at any point. So it's almost like, okay, chemistry can develop, but then something might change. So I just feel like they're starting to find their groove a little bit. They're battling their way back into games. And if they can start stringing together a couple of wins, I think that would really propel them to the end of this regular season and the postseason as well. So I think they've got the right pieces. Minnesota was a team that they hadn't beaten yet this year, but February 16th they did. So I think just kind of coming into the new year, they're showing signs of being, a young, hungry team. And I think what's ahead will be very exciting for the Boston Fleet.
I'm excited about it, but you're right. Like the travel, everything else, like it would play into something for me. And it's hard to travel up here in the Northeast. The weather changes on the drop of a dime. It goes from being, it's just going to snow a little bit to a full blizzard.
Yeah.
Or at least I call it a blizzard this weekend. That's what I thought I was walking through. But I love the illumination of the rookies and everybody getting settled. That win versus Minnesota, though, that was huge. And I feel like it's going to give them a huge jump in their step. But more importantly, to continue to talk about women like this and their game and the development and where the PWHL is going and so much more, we got a podcast for you called Respect Her Game, diving into all of the elements from Simone Biles to Caitlin Clark to all the top stories in sports. We've got you covered on Nessen's Women in Sports podcast, Respect Her Game. You can find it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and wherever else you get and enjoy your podcast. Natalie, you said something really important as we get ready to pivot to more hockey. You talked about how they're settling in, over there at the PWHL for the Boston Fleet, but I went to a hockey game on Friday, and BC lost to UMass, and I heard a lot of very unhappy fans. I heard a lot of reactions. Not sure if they were all overreactions, but I got to get your opinion. Boston College has been the hottest college when it comes to hockey right now. And, after losing to BU in the Beanpot, do you feel like there's anything that you've seen that changed in their game, or maybe something that just kind of mentally got to them, or is it an overreaction? Like, we still got time and BC is still BC.
I love that you went to that game, first of all. The one BC game you go to is the one that they dropped.
I know. No. I'm terrified because hockey's so superstitious too. So please, guys, don't put it on me. I swear I didn't do it.
Right. I know. Coaches, I'll ask the coach about a penalty kill, and then boom, the streak is killed because the team will score on it or something. So I get that. Trust me, you're not accountable for that. Don't worry. But no, I think in a way, Boston College, there's so many high expectations for this team that people forget that they're human, and sometimes they have off nights. And in a way, you think about the Beanpot, they played Monday, probably have a day off. Maybe they practiced twice before getting back to the ice. The same thing happened at Boston University. So BU played Monday, and then both teams ended up losing the Friday night matchup that they went into, but turned around and won the Saturday. So maybe it was just kind of like shaking off the rust from the Beanpot and getting back into regular season play. But yeah, I mean, I would, if people, were upset with that loss, I would say it is a bit of an overreaction, just because Boston College is, they're still a super dynamic, skilled team. But what's cool about UMass is that's a team that's, trying to, get a winning record going, and they've had lulls in their season, ups and downs. But what's cool is, Cole O'Hara for the Minutemen, he's like, I think second or third in the country in points. He's got 43 points. So he's third in the nation. I think 17 goals, 26 assists. So, you think about Hockey East in this conference, and it's like, yeah, Boston College is arguably the best team in college hockey, but, they can be challenged. They can certainly be challenged by other teams in Hockey East. So in a way, I like a team to be humbled every once in a while. So I'm glad UMass was able to get that, at least in the confidence side of things. But yeah, BC is still, a bit of a top dog in a way.
That's what I was going to ask. I was like, after all of this, I mean, the performance has been there. Even on some of their more fatigue games, you're still seeing those players show up. You're still seeing great in strength and play. But that was the other thing is are they still the best team out there? Or do you see anyone kind of coming up and sneaking on them as they get closer to the madness that will be March in hockey?
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm going to say this is probably the most competitive that I have ever seen this league. And it's so fun because obviously Boston College is number one in the league. However, they're tied with Maine. And Maine was a team that was really starting to kind of push the pace towards the end of last season. They made it to the Garden for Hockey East Championships. I'm a UNH grad, but I was pulling for Maine because in a way you get tired of seeing these Boston schools continue to do so well. But so Maine and BC are tied for first in the league right now. And then it's BU, but I think the most exciting part is that 3rd through 7th place of Hockey East right now, because you've got a battle of UMass Lowell, UConn, Merrimack, and Providence College. They're all about a point away from each other, from surpassing them in the standings. So you just have such a tight, competitive league this year, and it's so much fun because I've been talking to different coaches and staff members around the league, and they're like, who knows what's going to happen? Because you're right. You could have Boston College one night, but they're going to lose to UMass, or you have Boston College versus UNH, and they're going to push it to overtime. So it's like the level of competition has just been so outstanding this year that it's hard to predict anything. I think Boston College would still be a favorite when it comes to the championships. However, the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th place, I think it's going to be very tight. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if you see UMass Lowell at the Garden, or if you see Merrimack or UConn. All these teams are just kind of, it's just they're pushing up against each other as hard as they can. And it's really, really fun to watch.
I know the competition just continues to stay super tight, but I'm glad you pointed out the fact that the rankings, because I feel like when it is this close and it can kind of become anybody's game, those teams that you should be looking close for is that number 5 ranked team, that number 6 ranked team, that number 7 ranked team. Now, one of my best friends, I always like to say I love her, but she's biased. She keeps asking me about Providence. because he feels just this tie to Providence potentially being this like sneaky in the mix situation. So any conversations out of late that could support her bias or her non-bias?
Yeah, no, you know what? She's got a feel for it, that's for sure. Providence is they're a great team, and Trevor Connolly just returned to the lineup. He missed about 5 games, I think, with an upper body injury. So I was at their game Friday night. They played BU. He scores a goal right away. He comes back in the lineup, and boom, he puts one away. So it was really cool to see him just like, okay, so that's why he was a first round draft pick. He returns from being injured and he goes right in and he makes an impact for this team. And at first they were going to kind of conserve him a little bit. They don't want to push someone from injury too hard, but he's the type of player who's going to push himself. He gets the opportunity and he will seize it. So having Trevor Connolly back is great, but that team is stacked. And I mean, they have great goaltending. They have a really veteran D corps. They have skilled young forwards too. So if this isn't their year, down the line, I wouldn't be surprised if they emerged even further, just because they do have a really, really great group this year. And in a way, I'm kind of surprised to see them at 7th in Hockey East, because it's like, wow, they should be higher. But that just goes to reflect the level of skill in this league and how any given night games can go anyway. But yeah, Providence is a really exciting program. I also have a little bias towards them because I lived in the city for about a year, but no, they've just got a lot of talent, a lot of skill. And I don't know if you've checked out their TikTok either, but they've got a lot of personality on their team. They're a very fun program.
Actually, that's why I think she's being so biased towards them, because she's always like, do you see how funny these guys are? Do you see like the character on this team? And I was like, I see it, but that doesn't mean that I can choose them to be number 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. But the East is stacked. I mean, right now with how the season's been playing out, it's almost like how it is for like the East in the NHL. Everything is this like 1 to 2, maybe a 3-point variation, sitting with the top 6 teams. The wild card dance keeps dancing. So I'm like, I mean, it just shows you what's going on in the East. It's super intense around, with hockey around these parts. Yeah. But I will ask, there's been so many cool storylines because, I'm still getting situated here in Boston, and it was really cool to get here around the Beanpot and everything. And a lot of players have great storylines. A lot of these coaches have great ties and connection. Is there a story that's kind of been your favorite over the course of this last like month or two, or anything where you're just kind of like, this is a fantastic story, or this player has like this great journey?
Oh gosh, that's such a hard question to answer, because in a way, like, all the storylines kind of blend together.
Right.
When you work
and there's so many of them.
Last night?
Like the goalie for BU was great. I thought George's interview with him for the post game was like super cool. Yeah. And so that's why I was like, we were there in the mix of everything. So I wasn't sure if anything popped out.
Yeah, well, BU is actually a program that kind of came to mind, and I guess we can start with him, Mikhail Yegorov. I think that's how you say it. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, he's Russian, and he's taking calculus and some of these crazy classes. And, this is his first semester in college. And apparently, according to Coach Pandolfo, he throws jabs at his teammates like, hey, you guys need to do better in school. Like, he holds them to a standard. He's like, I'm Russian, I'm taking calculus, and I love it. So you guys, if you're not doing well in school, like, pick it up. So he's kind of been that positive influence in more ways than one. But I also liked Cole Eiserman's story, just how he switched his commitment from Minnesota with the Gophers to being in BU. He's from Newburyport, and he just, to play good college hockey, you didn't have to go far, and he's kind of proven that to us. So I thought that was kind of a nice reflection of the league and just the level of talent again, and the opportunity that comes out of Hockey East. I would say, on the topic of just like entertainment personality wise, Providence College, they have a really funny sophomore class. And Nate Lehman said during the summer, they were here for like summer school, the program that they practice, whatever. So they went to the rink one morning during the summer, and Tanner Adams and Hudson Malinowski all showed up just allegedly looking like a wreck. And Nate Lehman was like, God, what did you guys do last night? And they looked at each other and they just kind of said, just matter of fact, well, we took our mattresses, we put them in the living room, and we had a slumber party last night, coach. And the coach was just like, God, these guys are so out of the box, but you can't help but to like be happy and laugh around them just because of how goofy they are. And, he said these are the type of guys that'll be your best men in your wedding one day. So you can there's a lot of stories that emerge throughout the season. I'm sure I'm missing a ton of them, but yeah, Hockey East, full of personality, full of opportunity. It's just fun to cover it.
Yeah, I've loved the personalities that I've got to see and meet, and they're just so infectious, and it just makes hockey that much more exciting, especially when the competition is hot and then the wins are rolling in for these
Yeah.
top 5 teams throughout. I like Yzerman's story too because you always just have this low key Minnesota versus Massachusetts thing going on, so that always
Right.
plays into it
Yep.
in such a fun way. But to stay up to date with Yzerman, BU, BC, what's going on in the East, NHL, as well as the PWHL, as I mentioned, make sure that you are watching Hockey Hub here over at Nesson. If you like what you hear, make sure to like and subscribe to the show. Hockey Hub can be found on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and wherever else you get and enjoy your podcasts. Natalie, thank you so much for taking the time to join me to talk about the East, to break down what's going on with the Boston Fleet. I can't wait to finally get over to a game and be able to meet you in person. I keep getting to meet everybody here on Hockey Hub, but what better way? We get to talk hockey and do all the fun. So thank you so much for stopping by and chatting with me with everything.
Thanks for having me. Of course. Thank you so much for having me. It was great to talk some hockey, and I look forward to meeting you and working with you in the future.
Yes, I can't wait.